Succah Daf. How's everybody doing? Today's email comes from SW from California. Hello, Reb Stefansky. I came across your Daf Shir from the Meaningful People podcast. I've had this opportunity that I took upon myself to spread your amazing shir, which I look forward to every day. I came from an ultra-Orthodox home in Muncie, which wasn't the greatest and had me leave the derech. I ended up having some major triumphs where my daughter got caught up in the system and was facing 40 years to life in prison. Amazing miracle happened, where she was provided opportunity to do the treatment instead of 40 years to life. This is where your shiurim come into play. I live in the state of California. The jail system just launched a new program for inmates to have iPads for the day. I live from paycheck to paycheck. I took it upon myself to pay for 25 Jewish inmates the monthly fee of $5 to have internet to enjoy your shiurim on YouTube like myself and thousands of others. I received letters of thank you since they really enjoy the shiurim to make their time easier. Thank you, SW, California. Incredible. So Sukkah Daf, one of the most famous dapim mishas, very interesting pictures on the side, circles and triangles, but it's not that difficult. It's actually a very easy sugya. We just learned yesterday that according to Acherim, around sukkah is puzzle. Comes Rabbi Elchanan and says, no, if the sukkah is round, it's kosher, provided that a 4x4 amma sukkah can fit inside. How do you figure that out? If 24 people could sit around that circle, that's enough. Now, if we were to measure just a single line of 4 ammas, then it would be enough for 12 people to sit around the sukkah, because we have a rule. Now, it's not 100% mathematically correct, but Taisus explains it's enough to teach to Talmidim, and this is what we go. If you have 1 tefach in the diameter, that means it's 3 tefachim in the circumference. Therefore, if you have 4 in the diameter, you have 12 in the circumference. But we don't need a single line, we need a square. If the square was outside of the circle, then it would be 25% larger than the circle. Rashi explains, because if you take a string and go around the circle, it's 3, but you take the same square and you need 4 to go around. Taisus argues. But we need a square that's 4x4 ammas inside the circle. So what do? We take the diagonal. The diagonal, and again, this is a rule, a mathematical rule in the Gemara, the diagonal is 1.4 the side. So if your box is 4x4 ammas, the diagonal will be 5.6. We just said that if you have a diagonal or a diameter of 1, you times it by 3. So if we have a 5.6, now you have to times it by 3, which is 16.8. 16.8 ammas. So why do we need 24 people to sit around? L'chayr, we're going that each person takes up an amma. That would be 24 ammas. All we need is 16.8. And to say that the Gemara wasn't medayik so much, they added, usually you don't add from 16.8 all the way up to 24. One shot the Gemara wants this attempt is that perhaps it's not that each person takes up an amma, but rather 3 people take up 2 ammas. Therefore, let's take off a third from the total. Instead of 24 ammas in circumference, it would be 16 ammas in circumference. But if that's the case, then why is it that 16 ammas is enough when in fact we need 16.8 ammas? It doesn't make sense that would be makel and say that midiraisa you need a certain size sukkah and will allow you to go smaller. Ravasi says that a person takes up an amma, but we're not looking at the outside circle around the people, but rather the inner circle. If we are calculating the outer circle, the blue circle, in fact that's 24 ammas. Says Ravasi, no, we're going to calculate the green circle, the inner circle. Now if we were calculating the outer circle, that's 24 amma, that means that the diameter is 8 amma. 8 times 3 is 24. But now that we're calculating the inner circle, we could drop 2 ammas because each person takes up an amma. So the diameter is 6 amma. 6 times 3 is 18. We are supposed to have, we came up with 16.8, and that the Gemara says, loy duck, we're not going to be that careful to the closest number. We'll round it off. We'll do 18. And that's okay. Because l'chumra, we could say le'dak and not l'kula. The Rabbanim of Caesarea said that a square inside a circle is actually 50% of the circle. In other words, since we came out with 16, you have to add 50% to that, another 8. 8 plus 16 is 24, and that's how we got to 24. Taisus says it doesn't make sense that the Rabbanim of Caesarea made such a mistake. The Gemara says it's a mistake. But how did they come up with such a mistake? Taisus says that we're talking about that there was a square, and then they made a circle around the square, and they made a square around that. The inner square is 50% of the outer square. That's what they meant, but people misunderstood them and said this halacha. So that's the sugya with the math equations. And now we're moving on to another sugya. The Gemara says that if there are two pottery maker sukkahs, one within the other, in other words, the way it was, they would live, whoever made pottery would live in the inner one and sell the product on the outer one. The inner one is chayv mezuzah, that's where he lives, but it's possible as a sukkah. Because it's not nikar, people can't tell that you're sleeping in a sukkah. You're right, you don't need lishma, we pass like basil, you don't have to make it lishma, but it has to be noticeable that you're living in a sukkah. Since you live there all year, it's not good. But the outer sukkah is not considered even a base shower. It's not even considered an opening to the inner one, because the inner one is not kavua enough. It's something that you move around, and therefore the outer one is part from a mezuzah, and it is kosher for a sukkah. There's a concept called sukkahs ganvach. It stands for goyim, noshim, behim, and kusim. If you make a sukkah for shade, for animals, for goyim, for women who are weaving, it's kosher, as provided that it was made for shade. And the big chiddush is, even though women are not mechuyev in a sukkah, nevertheless, it's kosher. And we could also add the category called sukkahs rakbash, which stands for royim, shepherds, kayotzim, people that watch figs, tremor pears, other fruit, and people that burganim who watch the city. Now, in this case, the chiddush is, even though these huts are certainly very temporary, they can move from place to place, nevertheless, since the person using this hut is a bal chiyuv, they're Jewish shepherds, therefore, it's kosher. Have a wonderful day.